Alright, welcome to Big East Time on RoundTable Time. I am your host, Matt Kellen. You can find RoundTable Time on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and of course Twitter. We're at RoundTable Time. So please feel free to review, sub, like, share, comment on any of these. There's always another seat at the Roundtable. So for today, we're going to look back at what has happened since the last Power Rankings, give a new Power Rankings as we begin this week. Just about halfway through conference play. The season really does fly by. Number one, we get started with Villanova. They were number one last time. Number one again. They go 3-0 since last Power Rankings with 3 road wins. Not 3 really resume-building road wins, but road wins are always nice to get. And they really basically just took care of business against 3 inferior teams. They got the close win at the Garden versus St. John's. Game that was never really in doubt, but they did, make it a little interesting down the stretch. Got a little close. I don't think DiVincenzo played great as he has in his career versus St. John's and at the Garden. And then they bounced back after the tough St. John's win, and they really obliterate 2 old Big East founding members in Georgetown and UConn. Both wins on the road. And right now everything's really clicking for this Villanova team. Really playing well at all facets of the game. Defense has looked better since it was a problem. Narrative started about 4 games ago. Read the game before the Xavier game, and they look good, very good on defense in these last 4 games. But just gotta keep it going. Home game against Providence coming up next. That should be a good one against what's been a Providence team is playing really well recently. Number 2, we're gonna have the same number 2 from last time. It's gonna be Xavier. Xavier's had a really good last 10 days or so. After they had the 2 road losses, first at Villanova, which was really tough loss for them, and then they go to Providence and lose. Starting to look a little shaky with the back-to-back losses, but really no problems for them. They go 0-3. They win home against Creighton, home against St. John's, and they win at Seton Hall. It started with dominating Creighton. It's been great to see Blewett. He's been shooting better really well the last three games. And started with he had a really good game against Creighton. It's been the three last wins have been with a new starting lineup. Kaiser Gates coming off the bench. He's been shooting really well, playing really well. And then Tyreek Jones coming off the bench. They've been replaced by Kerem Cantor and Najee Marshall. So they're playing a little smaller with Blewett at the 4. Paul Struggs has given them some good minutes, the freshman. I think that Creighton game just really showed how dangerous this team can be. They have the depth is great. They go 9 deep. 9 guys all really give them something out there when they're on the floor. And this team is really dangerous when all these guys play well. Not many teams. I don't think any team really in this conference can rival the depth of Xavier. And then of course they beat St. John's. Bit of a trap game before they go on the road to Seton Hall. And that game was a little closer than I'm sure Chris Mack wanted it to be, but they pulled it out, took care of business at home. And then they go on the road. A game that Seton Hall bounced back really well after the Creighton loss. I thought Seton Hall played really well out of the gate. But, Xavier found a way to win it late. J.P. McCure was great. Seton Hall was really leading all throughout the entire game. But, Xavier didn't get discouraged, hung in there, and pulled it out at the end. I think, in-conference road games are just so crucial as we get closer and closer to March. For these top 7 Big East teams, this is just the 4th conference road win against the other top 7 teams. Winning it down the road is just so crucial for tournament time. Definitely big for seeding. But the best teams, they play comfortable. They play the same way they do at home as they do on the road. Calm and composed. And Xavier did just that. And I think this was, just a really great way to establish themselves as that clear number 2 in the conference over Seton Hall. So number 3, it's going to be the same team from last week. It is Seton Hall. They did win at home against Georgetown. They came out a little slow, but then really responded well. It was really right after the honoring of the 92-93 Seton Hall team that they really bounced back and went on a run and beat beat Georgetown. But then, really 2 really tough losses. At Creighton was the game that, of course, Desi Rodriguez got benched, played just 6 minutes, And, I mean, whatever the reason was, I mean, Willard's reasoning didn't make a whole lot of sense. He said his face showed he didn't want to be out there, or he said something like that. I think he's looked like he's been going a bit through the motions recently, and I thought the benching was somewhat warranted. Not totally surprised to see him, on the bench, but with him not playing, Delgado was in foul trouble, and Carrington got the Kyrie Thomas treatment on Thomas's defense. The three of them just scored 12 points combined. Never got in a great flow. And what they're gonna get out of these big three seniors is gonna be really big for this team, because they are so reliant on these three guys. But they come back home where they've been really good this year. This has become their first home loss this year, and they came out really strong. They're winning the whole game. They just didn't close. JP McCure responded very well to the JP sucks chants from the student section. And of course, Seton Hall lost this one to Xavier. Personally, I still believe in this team and these seniors. Delgado is just 6 rebounds away from the Big East rebounding record. I think this made Xavier look good rather than a mark against Seton Hall. I think this looks better for Xavier. But another thing, I think Carrington's been playing very well as a point guard. I was a little skeptical of him as a point guard. I think he looked more like a shooting guard trying to play the point guard role. But I think he's kind of gotten down the nuances of playing the point guard position. I think he's looked good running this team. I'm not counting them out at all. They're at DePaul next. They don't play at DePaul for a little while, so they got some time to get right after the back-to-back losses, and they go against a team who's won just the one game in conference in DePaul. So at 4, we do have Providence. Providence was 6th last time in the power rankings. So for Providence, they also go 3-0. They win at DePaul. They win in that all-access game. They win at home against Butler, and then they win at home against Creighton. And it's nice to see this team string together a couple wins after what looked like it could be a really disappointing season. After being really high expectations, couple tough losses out of conference, but they're starting to come together nicely. I think Alpha Diallo has played very well recently. Really like what he's doing. Jalen Lindsey's been shooting really well, especially in the last few games. Of course, Cartwright's been great. And you kind of say they go as he goes, and he's been playing very well, and they've been playing very well as well. Khalif Young has replaced Nate Watson in the starting lineup. I think Cooley likes his toughness and rebounding a little better than Watson. Watson just the freshman, of course, got plenty of time to grow. But I really like what I see from Providence. They're deep, and they've been playing very well. Isaiah Jackson has also played very well recently, but they're coming together after avoiding what could have been a very disappointing season. Of course, still a lot of time to go. Up next it does get difficult. They're going to go on the road. They're going to play Villanova, and then they're going to play Seton Hall on the road, and then they go to Marquette. So we talk about how tough it is to beat these top 7 teams in their buildings, and they got 3 really tough ones coming up. If you're Providence, I'm sure you want to win at least one of these, but definitely not going to be the favorite at Villanova or Seton Hall. And Marquette, another one, is tough to beat on the road. They got to take it one game at a time. Tough stretch. It seems like every team is going through a tough stretch, really most of the time through conference play. Number 5, we have Marquette. They were number 4 last time. They went 1-1 since our last power rankings. They did lose at Butler, and then they win at home against DePaul. Another one. Not totally surprising, the results of this one. They lose on the road and then win at home. They lose to a similar team, another one of these teams who's in this mid-tier in Butler. And then, of course, Hinkle, tough place to play, and then they come back home and they beat one of the bottom 3 teams. They fell behind in that Butler game, then they came back but they fell the victim of a Keelan Martin career high 37. Butler closed it out. Then they took care of DePaul. The one thing I think of note in that game was really Rousey and Howard only scored 18 points. I mean, the role players scored 52. Hauser had, I think, 19. I mean, it's big to get these guys going if they want to make any noise from the tournament. You talk about Xavier's having a ton of depth, and then you got kind of Marquette at the other end of the spectrum with really, I mean, of course, Howard and Rousey's the 1-2. And then Hauser has also played very well. You want to give him credit, but this is a really young team. Rousey's the only senior, and then you got Helt, center. He's really the only, junior. Those are really your two upperclassmen, role players. So, I would look for these role guys to keep getting better. I think they've gotten definitely better as the season has gone on, but the success of these role players is really what's gonna determine how far Marquette can go in both really the conference and the NCAA tournament. And up next for Marquette, it gets tough. They go to Xavier, and then they're home against Villanova. So obviously, big chance to make a nice statement. Of course, they did beat Villanova at home last year, but definitely a big chance to make a statement with these next two games. And of course, obviously, a road win at Xavier would be massive. At 6, we have Creighton. They were number 5 in our previous power rankings. They go 1-2. They lose at Xavier. Then they win at home against Seton Hall. Then they lose at Providence. So the continuing theme here, they won at home, lost on the road. I think the biggest thing that this team is what they're going to do forward without Martin Krampelj, who's, I think, was looking like a clear-cut, most improved player in the Big East. Really so important to what they've been doing, and very important to their offense. He's great. Great role guy in the pick and roll. Is scoring. He's really their only inside scoring presence. I guess Marcus Foster can also score inside, but from a big perspective, he was really the only guy scoring inside. And they're gonna lose his toughness as well. The other bigs are really Ronnie Harrell and Toby Hegner, who both more. Hegner more of just a shooter, and then Harrell kind of like face up. The guy they call a matchup problem for bigs because he's quick and can shoot and play in the mid range, mid post. Not a lot of toughness out of those two guys. We haven't seen Suarez. He's the 5th year. You haven't seen him play a ton since Krampel's been down. So they're gonna go to those two guys. Definitely gonna play smaller. I think the biggest. You're really gonna need to lean on Kyrie Thomas and Marcus Foster as much as possible. But this is still as a team with some depth, not a ton of depth up in the front court, but they need their younger guys. Tyshawn Alexander's got to keep on playing well. Mitchell Ballack, we'll see. I think he's going to see definitely a lot of time as a small ball 4, which I think he can play, and we see him do it against bigger guys. But they're going to need as much as they can get out of those guys. And another one, I think Caleb Joseph, the Syracuse transfer. Hopefully. He hasn't played a lot, but he's definitely got some talent. You got to get. You want to get something out of him as well. McDermott's gonna go smaller, and you need these guys to step up and give them some depth. But they definitely do still have it. Next two games, they're at St. John's, home against Georgetown. Definitely, I don't want to say it's a break. St. John's, of course, hasn't won in the conference. But, they're definitely a team who's hungry, and they pushed a lot of teams at home. That could be Creighton without Krampelj. Chance for an upset there for St. John's. And then they play Georgetown at home, and Creighton's usually lights out at home. So you don't want to say a cushion for a team that's kind of changing without Krampelj, but definitely a chance to bounce back a bit. But there's still a lot of talent here. Really unfortunate for them. You hope Krampelj gets quick recovery for his ACL injury. 7, we got Butler, and they were 7 last week as well. They go 2-1. They win at home against Marquette, and they lose on the road at Providence, and then they win at DePaul. I think it's really tough to separate these 4 teams. I think in the wake of the Krampelj injury and the way Providence has played, I think Providence definitely has a case to be, number one out of these 4 teams. Providence, Marquette, Creighton, and Butler. I mean, these are 4 teams that really protect home court very well. I think, road wins, and it's going to be huge within these 4. I mean, one can win on the road and against the other can definitely separate themselves a bit. Keelan Martin, the question I think I've always had with him has been the consistency. And, he's been, for the most part, consistent. He really struggled versus Providence in their loss on the road. I think it's going to be tough for them to win, and especially score without Baldwin and Martin both on. Jorgensen's inconsistent. You got the glue guys, Weidman and McDermott. Also, Badley and Thompson. But, when talking about consistent scoring, it's really only, when consistent scoring, you're going to be looking at Martin and Baldwin. They really need both these guys on, to win, really. But, so they're playing home against St. John's next. Number 8, we got Georgetown. Georgetown was 8 last time. They go 1-2. They lose at Seton Hall. Came out pretty strong. I think Seton Hall more came out slow in the beginning than Georgetown did come out strong, but they lose there, and then they really get annihilated by Villanova. And then they come back, they win at home against St. John's. They complete the sweep of St. John's. They're now 3-0 against DePaul and St. John's this year. Starting to separate a bit. DePaul's got the 1 win, St. John's without a Big East win. Georgetown's got 3. I think the one thing we know about this Georgetown team is these 2 bigs are really good and really talented, Govan and Derrickson. I think Patrick Ewing's got to be a big part of that. But it's really just too hard to win without a really a true point guard. I don't think without really an above-average perimeter player. This year has, I think, been a step in the right direction. I think they're getting there. They got to get a point guard. But starting to separate a bit from those bottom 2, and getting wins. They got 3 wins. I think 3 and 5. It's still. Of course they've all come against DePaul and St. John's, but you got to beat the teams below you, and I think they're proving that they deserve to be above those 2, and that's why they're 8th in our power rankings. Moving on to 9, DePaul loses at home against Providence. They lose at Marquette, and then they lose home against Butler. I think they had the lead in that, the FS1 All Access game against Providence. At Providence would have been a very nice win for DePaul, but with these three losses, it's clear they lost to 3 better teams. I think that's what it comes down to. I'm not a big. After watching Leto coach, I'm not a big fan of the way he coaches, but he's had success in the past, and he's had success at DePaul in the past, and they seem to be getting better. They're definitely better than they were last year. So, but they're playing, like we said, at Georgetown next. Definitely a chance for a win. 10, we got St. John's. They were 10 last week. They go 0-3. They lose at home against Villanova. They lose at Xavier, and then they lose at Georgetown. I think we've seen this now. I think at least a couple times in Conference 2, where they lose a couple back-to-back really tough games against better teams, that they play tough and they stay in the game and they lose by single digits, and then they have a chance to get a win against a similar skilled team, and they wound up losing. That's what they did. They lost at Georgetown. They ended that the first overtime. Of course, they fouled Derrickson. They missed free throws at the end of that first overtime. I think a game they should have probably won in that first overtime. But this is a team that's just so shorthanded. And then with the Georgetown game, the 3 players fouled out, and you're getting big minutes from bench guys. They're definitely at least a year away. And there's some talent there. Pons has played well, but I think he's taken so many shots, and he's had to really take so much of that scoring responsibility without Marcus Levette. That they obviously, I think they just need more talent. Their 2 transfers, Clark and Simon, have definitely helped. But they just need more talent I mean, their tough stretch continues. I think it was like the winnable middle part of it was Georgetown, Creighton, Butler, and now they're 0-1 there. If they got Creighton at home without Krampelj, maybe some upset potential there. Then they go to Butler, and then of course they play Xavier, Duke, and Villanova 3 in a row. So, I mean, they're definitely gonna have a tough time going forward. I mean, you want to at least see them get a win. But that will do it for Big East Time. My name is Matt Kellen. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for listening. This has been RoundTable Time. Remember, there's always another seat at the round table, so please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Or you can find us on Twitter at RoundTable Time. Thank you.